Today we're going to talk about the seven places to avoid buying new construction homes in Denver in 2024. These are items that no one talks about, but we're going to discuss them today in honesty. Hey everyone, what's going on? This is Laurie Derickson and Kalene Zaabadick, not pictured, but don't worry, she'll be here shortly, from Colorado's finest agency here in Denver, Colorado. We're one of your top relocation teams here in the Denver area. If you're ready to move to Denver, are you ready to buy real estate in Denver? Put those numbers into your phone and reach out. So when you are thinking about buying a home here in Denver, it will probably be one of the biggest and most important purchases of your life. So you want to be informed and make sure that you're making a smart investment for you and your family. And that is what we're going to talk about today, especially if you are thinking of a new construction home here in Denver. So with that in mind, we know there are 7 kinds of neighborhoods or new construction areas that you might need to walk away from. It doesn't matter how affordable they are or what kind of incentives they're offering or how convenient that commute is. There is enough new construction here in Denver that you actually don't have to settle. So the first thing we're going to talk about is stay away from construction that is built in the middle of older, run-down neighborhoods. You will find quite a few areas like this in Denver. The problem with new construction areas in some of these areas in Denver is that building is landlocked by those beautiful mountains. So areas for new builds are limited in these areas. You will find builders grabbing every plot of land they can find in the area to put in smaller pockets of new build single family homes and townhomes. Developers just see those dollar signs and often are trying to put as many homes in that small little plot of land as possible. They are worried about their bank accounts and not your investment. A lot of cities like Denver have their main business hubs and districts. Think of like the Denver Tech Center. And back in the day, homes were built all around those businesses. And living in these areas can offer a less commute for sure, so definitely has its perks. Have you ever found yourself driving in an area from homes in the 1940s and 50s and all of a sudden a brand new neighborhood or a few new builds pop up? I can hear you ask, what's the problem with that and why is that a bad thing? New construction with the short commute sounds great. In an established neighborhood sounds pretty good. But just hang on a sec, because sometimes these things really are too good to be true. One thing to consider is that many of these older homes do not have an HOA. So you run into just a serious wild card when it comes to upkeep in these neighborhoods, because these homes are really old and they're naturally going to age with time. So you have some neighbors that over time have put in the necessary improvements to their home and some that, well, have let it go. We all know a neighbor or two that has that rotting siding, those cracked steps, older windows. It's just the natural progression of those older homes over time. And like we noted, we won't have an HOA, so there's no big brother, so to speak, to make sure that those homes all stay well kept. Also, anytime you run into a neighborhood without an HOA, you must consider your tolerance for items like a neighbor painting their house pink, it happens, or the neighbor with 4 broken down cars in their yard, broken fences, lawns overgrown, etc. Now, I don't love all HOAs, to be honest, and we have a lot of clients that love them and absolutely hate them. It's just something that we want our clients here in Denver to consider when purchasing a home, whether it is a new construction home or existing home. Again, I'm not by any stretch of the imagination a huge advocate for HOAs, but to the extent that they maintain the appearance of a neighborhood, I think that it's an argument in their defense. And each HOA management company is different with their own regulations and restrictions, which is why in each transaction we get time to review HOA docs in details. If you don't like them, you can back out in an existing home, that is. New construction gets a little more complicated, why it's so important to be aware of HOAs or lack of HOAs in the beginning. Now, depending upon the area, a recent study found that not only does a well-run and maintained HOA make the neighborhood look more pleasant for residents, but it can even lead to higher home values. A 2019 study found that homes that are part of an HOA had prices that were on average 4% higher than similar homes without an HOA. Now, obviously, again, I'm not necessarily advocating that you should race out and buy a home with an HOA, because goodness knows there is enough reasons not to use that as well. But it is something to keep in mind, and we're going to discuss the pros and cons with your situation as we navigate that Denver real estate market together.
So number 2, another thing you want to avoid when purchasing a new build is avoiding areas where all the home prices are exactly the same. Ideally, you want your home to be surrounded by higher priced homes, eventually making your new home more desirable and more valuable. Those higher priced homes bring up the value of your home. We have entire suburbs in the Denver area that tend to be this way, but we also have pocket communities everywhere. And honestly, these are just a little less ideal. So some examples here in Denver might be the neighborhood of Sky Ranch in southeast Denver, where the median home price only varies by about $20,000 to $25,000 from house to house, or the Buffalo Horn subdivision near Commerce City, where current active homes range anywhere from $549,000 to $564,000. They're all almost exactly the same. This doesn't really allow for quick equity in homes at times. Where we find our clients often running into trouble with resale is when they put in a ton of money towards upgrades on these homes in these communities, and then they just don't get it back out. There is just not enough high-priced homes to bring up the value of these homes when it comes to the appraisal. So unless you go to resell and your potential buyer has straight cash, you could be in trouble when it comes to that third party appraising that home value in order to approve the loan for the new potential buyer. Let's also look at newer townhome developments. For example, the towns at Skyline Ridge and Castle Pines, which sits just off of I-25. It's a great location, especially for a more affordable option near Denver with an easy commute to the Denver Tech Center and also easy access to E470 to go ahead and hit those slopes on the weekends. They're the same townhome plans that are built over and over until the community completely builds out. And we'll talk about the pros and cons of building in a community that just is getting started versus one that's finishing up. There's definitely good and bad to both, but these townhomes basically are all the same. So if someone wants to purchase one of these beauties and you have one that's for sale right next to the existing one, why would the buyer choose yours to purchase when the exact same one is available and similar priced and is new and the builder's offering lending incentives that you just can't compete with? Just something to consider when you're considering buying real estate here in Denver. Now, all of these areas are great. The homes are great. We just want you to be aware of the pros and cons when you purchase that new home here in Denver. Remember, we want it to be an excellent long-term investment for you and your family. Let's also talk about a good example of this, and one of these good examples is over in Parker. So specifically, this area is in Allison Ranch. We have new builds starting from the 700,000s, and then they go all the way up over 1.1 million. The value of your house is going to be significantly affected by those $1.1 million homes in the neighborhood. It helps bring up the value over time. Let me explain this point a little bit further. So when you try to sell in an area with all similar priced homes, there's nothing really to distinguish your home from all the other homes that are priced the same. You end up with 3 or 4 homes of all exactly priced homes. So why would anyone pick your home over the other? And what if you go out and upgrade your home or distinguish your home? Well, is your home now over improved for the area? Will the appraisal be able to keep up? So too much supply of the same thing will inevitably make it harder to sell. It's typically much better if your home is the least expensive one in a great area.
All right, so we are moving on to number 3. Number 3 is that you also never want to buy in a neighborhood where major roads may come through it. Many of our clients will tell us they do not want a major road in their backyard, or they do not want to hear that road noise. So we avoid these areas, but oftentimes you don't know, and you must and need to do your homework, especially when we talk about new construction. We always look at this for existing homes for our clients, but think about new construction. Oftentimes these new construction home areas are being built out for years, sometimes decades. And that farmland or that open space behind you may be slated for major road development in 1 to 5 years. and it may bring down your resale ability and home value. For example, the I-70 project, this will reconstruct the 10-mile stretch between I-70 between Brighton Boulevard and Chambers Road, widening it in areas. While it's not a new home area, homes in this area will be greatly affected. In newer homes communities, you don't even know or see where future roads will connect. It is very important to be aware of this and look at this aspect of new construction homes here in the Denver area. Not only should you consider road expansion with new builds, but future home development. We recently had a client build or buy a new home, or is looking to buy a new home in a new build community, only to find out that another newer community was slated to be right behind it. And so that's what she thought was going to be an open space with the mountain view could be grossly affected by another community going right behind her. And worse, a 2-story home might block her mountain view. I mean, many of our clients move to Denver for those views. So needless to say, this discovery that we had that new community is going right behind her impacted her decision to build in this particular area.
So number 4 goes along with the theme, but not only do you need to consider future road development, but also retail and tollway development. So let's consider future retail development as well as when you're considering new construction. Do you really want your yard backing up to all that retail traffic? You want to watch people go in and out of coffee shop lines, or for your nightly view, do you want to stare at a gas station? Some of the new build communities also have apartment buildings being slated for future development, meaning potentially hundreds of people could be watching you drink your coffee or wine on your new back deck. So let's also discuss future tollway development, because Denver loves its tollways. It's definitely becoming more and more popular. Just imagine how bad the traffic will become if you are you're in a main way out of the community and you connect directly to a tollway. And if you end up having to go through a bunch of retail to get there, your old 5-minute commute onto the highway now takes you 15 or even 25 minutes. E470 is a prime example of what I'm talking about. What used to look like a 4 to a 6-lane highway development in the middle of the county of Denver is now filled with an on and off sprawling tollway development along with the highways. Now, before we get to the all-important number 5, I want to quickly remind you of our Big Green Box promotion coming in 2024. Not only do you get to work with one of the best relocation teams to the Denver area when you reach out to us, but at our close, our clients choose from 6 luxury closing gifts. So in your new home, you'll get to have your new 86-inch LG 4K TV or a brand new snowblower to get rid of all that snow Denver has to offer, or maybe you want that Louis Vuitton bag for your new walk-in closet. So make sure and reach out to us today so we'll answer all your questions on moving to Denver and the surrounding areas.
Our 5th type of new construction to avoid is neighborhoods that split school districts. According to greatschools.com, when I went to research some of these areas and when I talked to some of our clients, they noted that this can make a huge difference for buyers within a community. So greatschools.com is a resource that parents use to make decisions about where they want their kids to go to school, and this can have a huge impact on resale, whether we like it or not. I realize that probably sounds kind of strange, so let me explain. There are numerous beautiful neighborhoods known for being in outstanding school districts that are actually split right within that neighborhood between being in what is a really great rated school and a not as really great rated school here. So in Denver, when choosing a home, a buyer is heavily considering one home against another, not based on just the house, but actually the school rating that is provided by these third-party sites. So like it or not, and the debate on how accurate these sites are is out there, but the reality is parents use them and it can affect your home value or its resale. Now, on the opposite note, it is just as important to consider future school development. I mean, take a look at the Painted Prairie community in the northeast Denver. This is such a growing area in the community in that although the current schools, according to greatschools.com, do not get the best ratings, there is a brand new school slated to open in 2024, 2025 with top curriculum and amenities. And looking at the charter school options in the area is another thing to consider. I mean, look, I have 3 kiddos of my own, and I know just how important these schools are. And if I'm honest, most of our clients that reach out to us with kids, it's one of the first questions and concerns they have. So it's something to be 100% aware of when you are purchasing an existing home, and even more within a new build community. We also have school of choice here in Colorado, but school of choice also has its parameters. For example, you can choose your school through an application process, even if you do not reside within that particular school's boundaries. But you must be aware that the school, if it's full, you don't reside within that boundary, it's not happening. Or if your child has like an IEP, for example, the school doesn't have to take them due to a lack of resources. And then you also must know that you must provide your own transportation when you're outside of that school's boundary. So all this to say, we must do our research when looking for a home here in the Denver area. And just because the MLS or the selling agents puts the school into the listing does not mean it's 100% accurate. There's an old verbiage here in Denver, the real estate market. It used to be location, location, location. But perhaps today the real model should be schools, schools, schools. So anytime you are talking about area schools, you're talking about dollar signs. So we must take school ratings seriously. We also have areas that have great school.com ratings, but don't pass those school bond measures, which leaves the school underfunded, which is another aspect we have to consider. So we can go on and on about schools for quite a while, obviously, but I think you get the point. It's important to consider schools when purchasing a home, and important for your real estate investment, and that your agent is highly versed in this area as well.
So moving on to number 6, don't ever buy a home in a neighborhood where there's no architectural diversity. You know what kind of neighborhood I'm talking about. It's that pretty easy spot off the highway, this type of community where all of the homes pretty much look the same. There's 1, maybe 2 versions of the home that the builder is building over and over again. I mean, money back in that builder's pocket to build that same floor plan over and over, and that's why they get away with it. It is the 2-story home you see from the highway, and all the homes vary in one shade of beige or another. They all have 2 windows facing out the back. There's not any kind of different elevation, and by elevation, if you're wondering what that is, it doesn't mean it's elevating it something. It means the front view of the house or what the house looks like specifically. If you're considering a new build here in Denver, you've probably heard or read about elevation A, elevation B, elevation C. This is all set by the developer, and this helps give the community some architectural diversity. I've seen neighborhoods where the entire street is almost the exactly same, but it looks like a row of box houses. So what's the problem again? It has to do with resale. There is no unique attributes that sets apart your home or gives it curb appeal from the others. Ideally, you want to see a lot of different homes and different elevations, different colors of siding, stone, stucco, different roof pitches, etc., so that you probably see that the neighborhood has more character, and any of those neighborhoods that have more character tends to give the home more value.
The last but not least is number 7, the age of the new build community. I know that we talked about this earlier. The question is, do you get in when a community is just starting in phase 1 of the development, or is it better to get in on the tail end of a new home development? Well, that answer is it depends. There are pros and cons to each, and let's take a look at both. Let's consider a new home development in phase 1. A great investment is typically what we tell our clients, but there are some buts in this factor, so some variations. The first major but is how long you plan to be in this development. Buying in the initial phase of a new community is usually great from an investment standpoint, especially if you're considering a dirt start. Think about it. You are one of the first homes, you contract for around $700,000, and while your home is being built over the next 9 to 11 months, you sit and build equity without paying interest or your mortgage. So when you go to close on that home, other homes are now starting at build price around $750,000, $50,000 of instant equity for you. And that and that as the community builds out, each new phase or each few months, these communities typically see price increases, all increasing your equity. Again, a great investment. But here comes the but. If you are planning on building and don't know how long you plan to live in this community, this is where things can get tricky. If you buy in a new build community and want to sell before a major part of that community finishes out, you're kind of stuck with trying to sell your existing home in a community with tons of other new builds, and you need to compete with them. And the builders right now are offering a ton of lending incentives that frankly the average seller just can't match to start with. So building in an initial phase of development is usually a great idea, but only if you plan to live there for at least 3 to 4 years. Oh, and you may be living in constant construction and that noise for a few years. Now let's discuss building at the end of a development. As you can probably guess, the opposite holds true. While that community is almost done building, you won't see the builder hiking their prices every few months. You're now relying on the typical Denver real estate market to increase those prices, which is typically a strong market. But oftentimes buyers do not see as fast as an increase in their equity. It's still a great investment, but maybe a bit slower, or should I say average equity growth over time. And when you go to sell, you're not competing against new builds and those crazy lending incentives we're seeing right now, which can be a plus definitely. And you do not hear the beeping of those construction trucks for that year. So are you ready to find your dream home here in Colorado? And we hope this was helpful and something that is valuable to you as you consider making that move. So we would love to help you. We help hundreds of families each year. So you know what to do. Drop those numbers in your phone and reach out. We love what we do. We love working in the real estate market here in Denver every day, and we're good at it. Check out our 5-star reviews. So until next time, we're out from Colorado.